Okay, so today I'm going to get you up and running with Sega Model 2 using Retrobat. It's a fairly easy guide and I'm going to show you how to access menu settings and get you some better visuals, so check this one out. Okay then, so first things first, if you're new to my channel and you like this video today, just hit notifications for me. It really helps my channel out a lot. And also be sure to subscribe. So let's get into this. So Sega Model 2 is arcade-based games by Sega, obviously. So what we're going to do first is just head over to the Retrobat shortcut, which should be on your desktop or wherever it's placed, and just go to Open File location. Let's firstly go to Bat GUI. Like I always recommend, this is the easiest way to find out which file extensions is going to work with Retrobat. If you don't see any of this, what you can see on my screen right now, then it's likely you haven't installed DirectX All-in-One. So anyway, once we're under System, just go down to Model 2. And as you can see just here, Retrobat is actually just asking for your games to be in a .zip format. So it's very easy, pretty straightforward. So let's close this down. And inside of your file location for Retrobat, you've got your ROMs folder. If we go inside of this one and just search for Model 2, and here we go. So just drag your zipped game inside of here, and you can now open up Retrobat, and the logo should appear. So as we can see, M2, this is for Model 2. So if we go inside of this, let's firstly get some artwork for this. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now. And that should take just a few moments to gather the art in the preview video. And there we go. So scrape and finish, update game list to apply changes. So we go to game settings, update game list, and really update. Okay, so there we go. We got a preview video with this one, and we've also got the artwork for this one. So if we go to view options, advanced system options, under emulator, we have a couple of different types here. So if you've got a, say, dual core processor or anything over a single core processor, then multi-CPU is going to be the best way to do this. If you've got a very old CPU, which has just got one core in it, then obviously single CPU. I'm going to leave this to auto because, as we know, Retrobat detects the next option next to auto, which is multi-CPU. So let's actually just open this one up. And the first thing you're going to get is the emulator is not installed. So let's just press yes to get this installed.
Please select a race course. Automatic manual. Start your engine.
So let's just exit out of that one. As we can see, that plays just fine. I'm literally just using my left and right analog stick to control this, and my back right bumper, which is using as the gas button. So very simple to set up this one. Let's go back to advanced system options and just alter some video settings. So shader set, I'm going to put this one, as I always do, to enhanced. And just to make a note, for old scorers out there who prefer something like scan lines, you do have an option for this here. So in fact, let's go for scan lines for a change. And then finally, we got decoration. So that's entirely up to you. With this particular emulator, which is being used by Retrobat, we don't have an option for a 16:9 ratio. So you're probably better off with default unglazed if you've got this one. I'm just going to go for none for this. And if we go to video mode, you can then select which one of these options best relates to the screen that you're using. Again, auto normally detects the best, so I'm going to stick with my 1080p 60Hz, which is what my laptop screen runs at. And let's go back into this. I'm going to show you a bit more about this emulator, how we can access a menu whilst in gameplay.
Select a race course. Beginner. Please choose manual or automatic transmission. Start your engine.
Okay, so sometimes you might need to go into this menu, and to do this, I'm just pressing F2 on my keyboard. Okay, so this is the menu you're going to get if you press F2. So you mainly need this menu to go into games to set up alignment issues if you're using a light gun, which of course Retrobat nowadays also supports. And Sega Model 2 has several light gun games on it, so you might need to access this menu. Like I said, you can do this by pressing F2. And to navigate this test mode menu, I'm just pressing F1 to go down, and that's how you select each option. And to go into one of these, I'm going to just press, say, F2, and that's going to let me go inside. And again, F1 is going to just take us down. Now, say for example, we want to put our game on a harder mode. I'm just going to press F2, and that changes the option. So let's go to exit. And let's go to exit again.
Please select a race course.
Now, should you get any issues when you're opening up a game and it says anything about network, then all you need to do is just use F1 to go down to the game system option. Press F2, of course, to enter into this one. And just make sure, if you get this issue, that link ID is set to single. In this case, for Daytona, it's already on single, but that's likely going to be the case if you get that network issue. Okay then, so first things first, what we're going to need to do is download firmware, and that acts as a BIOS for Retrobat to read. Links in my description as always. So just go and download the PS3 update, and this is, like I say, the firmware. If you're using Edge like I am for this, then just keep it and that will download and keep anyway. And whilst we're waiting for that one to download, what I'm going to do next is show you compatibility. Now, PS3 games, emulation-wise, are getting very good nowadays. A few years ago, it would barely run a few games, but nowadays, we have got lots and lots to play. So, first thing you need to look at, if you want to play the game all the way through, so 100% playability, then the tab here, Playable, is going to show you all the games which are, like I say, 100% playable, and these are going to cause no crashes. Some of them might need some minor adjustments to make them a bit more playable if you get lighting issues, but I'll go on to that later on in this video. So what I'm going to do is use my game I always use for these setup guides. I've covered this on Launchbox and Batacera, that's an RPCS3 emulator. So I've got 007 Legends in under the RPCS3 compatibility list. 007 Legends is actually located here and it's deemed as playable, which it is. So you've got icons as well. So round circle here, obviously that supports the disc version of 007 Legends. And the PlayStation logo is for digital games. So I've got a copy of 007 Legends, which I extracted with my Blu-ray disc player. And that's that. So let's go and actually go into Retrobat to get the ball rolling with this. So if we go to Retrobat, what we're going to need to do is go to the Retrobat logo and search for RPCS3 and just open that. And it's not installed at the moment, so you'll likely need to use your cursor on your keyboard or your standalone mouse to go to yes to install. So you should have this pop up. So just check I have read the quick start guide and do not show again. It also warns you about not condoning piracy. So like myself, I'm a big PS3 gamer. I love PS3. And I'm going to just go to continue. And straight away, it's going to prompt us for a new update for RPCS3. So it's updated several times a day, literally. So just update it. So that's that done. And it's just going to say to restart. So just restart it. And that's that. So next thing you're going to need to do is we can do this through the Retrobat directory, or you can use this emulator as a standalone. So it's almost like a double setup guide I'm doing. So let's just go to File and install that firmware which we just downloaded. So File, Install, And now you need to locate where that downloads the PS3 update. So just locate where that PS3 update file is gone, and then just select it and it will start installing the firmware, which is currently 4.90. And you should get this come up then, compiling PPU modules. That's going to take a little bit of time, but don't close it down and let it do a spin. Sometimes it might appear to be stuck, but it's not stuck, it is doing stuff. So just let this be for 5 minutes or so. Okay, so once that PPU module process is finished, you're pretty much good to go with that part of it. So next thing I'm going to do is just close out of Retrobat altogether, just go to quit. And as you can see here, I've got my 007 Legends game on my desktop. In the file structure of this, how this rips from my disk, it gives you a PS3 underscore game. Inside, you've got a few different folders with files inside and so on. And you've also got a single file, SFB file, titled PS3 underscore disk.sfb. So what we need to do next is actually drag this game into a folder, and it's not going to be the ROMs folder this time for PS3. I'm actually going to put this into Emulators folder, and what I'm going to do is just go all the way down until I come to RPCS3, and from here there's going to be a folder called Games. If you just open Games up, what we're going to do is drag the 007 Legends Europe game I've got into this folder. And I've also got an update file for this one, which is a dot package. So it will update 007 Legends to the last version of it. So once that's in there, what we're going to do next is head out of here. And we're going to go into the emulator folder again for RPCS3 and RPCS3 to open this up. And as you can see, and mine's already added, but to add your game, what we're going to do is go to File, Add Games, and from here you can locate where you've just dragged and dropped your game, which is in the Games folder, and just highlight your game folder and select, and that's going to have your game pop up inside of RPCS3. Like I said, you can use this emulator as a standalone, or you can use it through Retrobat, so double whammy really for that. What we're going to do next is install the update file. So, like I say, I've got the package file, which is the 007 Legends update, which was last released a few years back, probably longer ago than that. So to update your games, what we're going to do is check this out first. Under version, it will say update available, and this is requesting 1.01 update. So what I'm going to do to install the update is go to File, Add Packages Wraps EDATs, and then just locate your update package file. So let's just double left click on that. Do you want to install this package? Yes, and OK. And as we can see, version is now gone to the current version or the last version. Now, in terms of your update files, you need to look at the serial and also the ID number on your update package files. So they need to be identical. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so next thing we're going to need to do is go to the Retrobat GUI, so you can access this easily by right-clicking on the shortcut of Retrobat, open file location, Bat GUI, M3U creator, and what I'm going to do next is point this PS3 emulator path to where my game is located, and that's in the emulators folder for RPCS3. So just click on the horizontal dots just here and just locate where your game is. So in my case, it's on C drive. And if I scroll down to my Retrobat folder, I'm going to then go into my emulators folder and then search for RPCS3. And obviously it's in the games folder we just put it into. And I'm going to just highlight this one, my game that is, select folder, scan, and this is what comes up. So under game name, just left click or double left click on this and just type in the title of the game, and that's going to generate the M3U file we need for Retrobat. So generate M3U. And as we can see here, we've now got 007 Legends.m3u. So let's just open up Retrobat again. And we now have PS3 up here, and we've also got our game. So let's just go straight into this. And there we go. So the first time round you load your games, it's going to take a little bit of time compiling what's called PPU modules. Similar process to what it was like just a minute ago when we was installing the PS3 emulator. So just bear this in mind. It's going to take a bit of time and just let it run its course. So if you notice at the bottom it says compiling shaders, so the first time you play your PS3 games, this is what it's going to do. It's going to put all your graphics of your games into a folder. It's almost like a cache folder, so it's grabbing the new graphics.
Bond here.
So classic bit of Goldfinger with Daniel Craig oddly playing Sean Connery. But anyways, you can do more from here. So if we go to view options, advanced system options, this bit is going to be a lot more pressing on your hardware. So just make sure, if you're going to do what I'm about to do, just make sure your hardware supports it. And RPS3 really needs a decent CPU and a really good graphics card too. So internal resolution is where you can bump these up. Now, let me just give you a tip. Not all games is capable of doing this. So, on some games, if you do this, you'll get weird artifacts appearing on the screen and your screen might go a weird color. Now, under game aspect ratio, most games for PS3, if not all of them, was by default set to be in 16 by 9. Of course, the PS3 era was the start of HDMI catching on, and so 4 by 3 ratio was a thing of the past at that point. So by keeping this to auto, 16 by 9 is going to just appear. So just leave that be. And under advanced settings, visual rendering, again, dependent on your hardware specs, if we go to anti-aliasing, yes, put this to yes if you can, or obviously just leave it to auto. Retrobat is going to read this to go to yes, even if you leave this on auto or press yes. So anti-aliasing is going to do what it says. It can fix some visual artifacts in some games, and of course it might not work on all games. Right color buffers. Now, some games with broken graphics, that type of thing, might require you to put this to on. So just press yes if any of your games do that. Anastrophic filtering is a case of filtering and scaling your games so they look better. So again, if you've got the hardware to support it, then go to 16 times or 8 times or whatever. I'm going to just put mine on 4 times for this. And under screen sync, I'm going to just put this one onto yes. And under drivers, if any of your games doesn't work, then there's a good chance that, say, OpenGL might be required to run some games. Generally, under auto, it selects Vulkan, and I find this no problem at all for the few games that I run. And your other settings here, things like emulation, some of these options might need to be put onto yes or whatever. And that's a case of go into the RPCS3 Wikipedia and searching your game. There's going to be hints and tips on there how to get your games working if they don't work or they got broken graphics or whatever. So with these settings now applied, I'm going to go back into the game and see how this one runs. And like I say, the second time around, it's loading PPU modules just like that. So it's just a one-time process. And as you can see, I've now got a black screen, and that's quite likely because I've been messing around with the settings. So, like I say, in some cases with PS3 games, it's a little bit of trial and error. So I'm going to go to the main catalyst for this, which is normally the case, and just put this internal resolution back to 720p. And let's open this one up again. And there we go. Fixed. So like I say, with PS3 emulation on RPCS3, sometimes you might have to dig in and find how to set specific games up. So the resolution of 1080p might be gone, but we've still got the anti-aliasing on, so, and a couple of other video options, so it's still a massive upgrade from the real PS3 hardware. And there we go. And to quit out of this emulator, Retrobat, I'm just using my PS button and just going to exit. So that's about it on the Retrobat side of things. What I'm going to show you next is if we go into the actual emulator itself, like I've been saying throughout this video, we can use this as a standalone emulator if you don't want to run it through Retrobat. So you can make a shortcut of this. What we're going to do is just go back to emulators and RPCS3. And the file you need to open up the emulator is the RPCS3.exe. And by all means, create a shortcut of this if you want. So just right click on it, show more options. And I'm going to go to send to desktop. And that's just made us an easy to access way of getting to RPCS3 if you're going to be using this outside of Retrobat. And here we go. Now, let me show you a few settings like I was showing you a minute ago in Retrobat. Most things are going to be in your config tab. Now, you've got all your GPU settings. Right color buffers is quite a big one for some games with broken graphics. We can also set anisotropic filter in here. And we also got auto aliasing, which is also going to be on auto mainly. And you can also upscale the resolution from here. But like I tried a minute ago, as you've seen, some games might give you a black screen, that type of thing. So let's back out of here. And finally, I'm going to just tell you every day, go to the help and go to check for updates. And because I downloaded this just a minute ago, it's not got an update, but guaranteed in a few hours' time it will have an update. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so I ran a poll last night on my community, and a lot of you out there want a bit more PlayStation. So I've decided to do a PS2 setup guide for Retrobat. So a couple of things we need to check before we get into the setup guide. If we go to the Bat GUI tool, which is located in your directory of Retrobat, let me just quickly show you how to get to this. So right click on your shortcut for Retrobat and open file location, and you will find your Bat GUI tool right just here. I just put mine on my desktop as a shortcut just for easy access. So from here, what I'm going to suggest doing is going to system list, and at the top under system, if we just scroll this down to PS2. Now, what I want you to do is check your extensions just here. So the game I use, which I always use on my PS2 emulation guides, is 187 Ride or Die, which is an absolute classic and frankly an underrated gem. Anyways, this is a .iso file extension, and as we can see here, it matches one of these, which is .iso. The extensions for PS2 through Retrobat also caters for, say, .bins and .chds, but .iso is the common one, certainly if you want to extract it from your own game disk. So with that being done, let's just exit out of here and exit this and open up Retrobat. And first thing I'm going to do is just make you aware of the BIOS files you need for this. So if I just go into main menu by pressing start on my controller, game settings, and if I go down to the bottom of game settings, I'll find missing BIOS check. If I just enter into this one, and this is going to display all the missing BIOS files that my Retrobat is missing. So without these, certain platforms aren't going to work through Retrobat. So I'm going to just find PS2 and it's going to tell us there which BIOS files it needs. Now, when you locate this, I suggest you taking a photo of it. So take a photo of what BIOS files PS2 needs, and that's it. You're pretty much good to go with that respect. So let's exit back out of here. Now, next thing I'm going to do is head over to the Retrobat icon, enter into that, and under here we're going to find a PS2 emulator. So you've got three PCSX2 emulators you can download from Retrobat. The one I'm going to recommend is the middle one. This is SSE4. If you just go into this one and install, so yes. And this one's actually asking us if we want update, so well, sure, download and install. And that's a Retrobat update, that's a emulator update. Okay, so once we've downloaded that emulator, let's exit back out of Retrobat, so quit. Now, like I was saying, I've got my 187 ISO image just here, which is, yeah, just a wonderful game. If not chavvy, it's still a great game. So let's start adding some things into Retrobat. So if we go into the Retrobat directories, so shortcut, right click and open file location. What we're going to do from here is go to ROMs, and you're going to find PS2. And here it is. So obviously our game image goes into the PS2 ROMs folder. And if we back out of ROMs and back out of that and go into the root directory, we're going to go to BIOS. Now under BIOS, you're going to find PCSX2. If you just open this one and go into BIOS. Now, if you remember just a minute ago, I told you to take a photo of those BIOS files. So once you've got those BIOS files extracted from your PS2 console, just drag those BIOS files it's asking for inside of this BIOS folder. Okay, so once you've put those BIOS files into that BIOS folder, let's open up Retrobat again. Okay, so you've now got PlayStation 2 in Retrobat, as we can see. If we just open this, this is our game. Let's just grab it some artwork. So go to main menu, scraper, and I'm going to just scrape. And let's just restart Retrobat. So game settings, update lists, and there we have it. So right at the top under emulator, I'm going to just go to PCSX2 Auto. And shader set, so shader is also going to be adding scan lines, that type of thing, if that's your preference. Decorations is obviously going to be your bezels on each side of the screen. So as you can see here, this is your bezels. So select whichever one you want. Personally, I prefer to have none on this. Game aspect ratio, rather than having your 4:3 old school CRT box screen image, you can actually put this into 16:9. It will stretch the image in some cases, but that's up to you. Now, the next one I'm going to say is vertical sync. Now, if we put this to yes, it will reduce screen tear. That's what VSync means. It means getting rid of the screen tear, which some 3D games have. Internal resolution, this is up to you, and as long as your hardware can support it, you can go up to ×8 on this, 4K, 5K, 6K, whatever. But just remember that to do this, you're going to have some really good hardware to support it. I'm going to just leave mine on, say, 720p for this. And if we go down to video just here, I'm going to keep this one on auto. And visual rendering, we got lots of goodies here. So things like anti-aliasing, that's going to be very drainful on your computer if you're going to be running anti-aliasing. I can support this on mine, so that'll be fine. Another one is bilinear filtering. So I'm going to leave this one as auto. And texture filtering is obviously, it's going to define your textures in your game. That's entirely up to you, as long as you've got the hardware to support this. And the next one, which is very draining on your hardware, is anastrophic filtering. So as long as your computer can support it, bump it up to 16 times. I'm going to just leave mine on 4 times. Now, sometimes if one of your PlayStation 2 games don't work, what you need to do is go down to Advanced Settings and go to Drivers. Your first option here is Video. So what we're going to do is leave on auto, but if a game doesn't work, then it's quite likely one of these video settings here needs to be changed. It's normally OpenGL or Vulkan, but I'm going to go to OpenGL for now. Back out of this. And if you should get a screen come up saying missing BOS files, as long as you put those BOS files in place, you can just launch it. And again, and open up the game. And yes, if you should see missing BOS files, as long as you put those BOS files in place, like I said earlier on in this video, just launch it. And there we go. Your game should be now up and running. So let's just back out of this and quit. Okay, so I'm going to get you up and running today with Wii U through Retrobat. It's one people seem to be struggling with, so I've investigated this one myself, and it's actually very easy to do. Obviously, you need a copy of one of your games. I've ripped my Star Fox Zero game, which is likely one of the best Wii U games there is, and it's odd how this has never been ported to the Switch, but there you go. So from here, what I'm going to do is I've got Bat GUI on my desktop, but I'm going to show you how to get to this. So if you just right click on your Retrobat shortcut and go to open file location, you'll find Bat GUI inside. If you just open this one up as so and go into system list, once this window's opens, go to system, and from here, if you just scroll down to Wii U and open this up, the extensions part is where we need to look just here. So each one of these is likely what your game is going to have. For example, Star Fox 0.iso, Star Fox 0.rpx, etc. So you need your game ending with one of these extensions. So in my case, Star Fox 0 is a .rpx file, as you can see. So if you've got an RPX file, which is the one I recommend you burning from your disk, make sure you choose the method to get that in the RPX. So what you need to do is actually rename that RPX. If I was to just load this up with Retrobat, it will just give you a random code, and that's no good. We want a name so we can also get some artwork. So to do this, you're going to go into your folder and then into the codes folder. And in here, the one you need to rename is the .rpx. So to do this, you just right click on the .rpx file, and I'm running Windows 11, so show more options, and you just rename it. Now, I've already done this one, but just make sure you delete the series of numbers and letters, but keep the .rpx intact, and obviously just rename it to whatever your game is, what you're going to be using. So that's that part done. Now, the next thing you need to do, once you rename this, is actually drag your game folder into your ROMs directory and obviously put it into the Wii U folder. So I'm going to just drag this inside. So as we can see, I've got my Star Fox Zero, and inside that another Star Fox Zero. And in code, this is the one which Retrobat's going to run from. So let's shut all this down for now and go into Retrobat. So we're in Retrobat, and obviously we got the Wii U icon up here. If we just go into that, we can now see Star Fox Zero rather than some random files with random letters and names. So first of all, we need to install the emulator itself. So if you just open this up, and the emulator for Wii U is obviously Cemu. Let's install this now, so press yes. This will install and it should boot straight up into your game. And there we go. Now just remember that you're going to need something substantial to support this. So if you're running a lower end computer with a weak processor or a weak graphics card, then it's going to be very laggy. So there we go. I've got you up and running with Wii U. And I'm turning the sound down on this just for this tutorial, but always working well. So everything's running well, as we can see. If we just back out of this and go back into Retrobat, from here I'm just going to press select on my controller, view options in advanced system options. And this is where we can manipulate things such as the screen resolution that your screen supports. Underneath visual rendering, you're going to have many different features here. Upscale filter. So again, depending on how strong your specs are on your computer, some of these might hinder the performance, whereas some of it might look good as well with support your hardware. So I'm going to go for bilinear because that's a good upscaling filter to have. Now, say for example, some of your games don't work, they don't boot. Try going under drivers, under video, and swapping it to something like Vulkan. By default, when you keep it on auto, it's going to select OpenGL. But like I said, just in case games don't boot, then just select Vulkan on this one. And if we go down a vertical sync and put that onto yes, because that's going to eliminate any screen tear during our gameplay. And underneath this one, we got game aspect ratio. So we've got a couple of options there to choose from. And that's about it. And then obviously you're going to want to scrape the artwork for your Wii U game or Wii U game. So just go into main menu, scraper, and scrape it. And from here, we can go to game settings, update game list, and yes. And there we go. So let's just go back into this again. Now we got artwork for it. Okay, so some of you might be aware I've already uploaded this, but this is a brand new fresh update. So if you want to follow it, just go into your emulators folder for Retrobat and just simply delete everything and start over again. For those new to this, what we're going to do is firstly go to the TechnoPara website, and the link's in my description. Now take note of this. If we take a look at compatibility key at the top here, you're going to get a blue tick, and that means that each one of the games listed, which is the full catalogue of TechnoPara games, are fully playable 100%. And there's quite a fair few in there. If we go down to the green tick, great. So it's going to play fine, but it's going to have problems with it. So, just be very cautious of what it is you're attempting to play. So next up, what we're going to do is if we go straight into Retrobat, and I'm going to go to download TechnoPara in Retrobat. Now, if I do this, it's going to give us an error. And the reason this is that sometimes Retrobat's going to have emulators to download. Some other emulators, such as this one, needs you to manually do it. So what we're going to do is just head back over to the TechnoPara website. And if I go to the Downloads tab, now this is what we need to download to get the emulator. If you have any problems with it, it's also recommending to download and install the DirectX user runtimes as well as the Visual C++. So yeah, if you do get any problems with it, then that's your problem just there. So let's just download TechnoPara. Now on this option here, you've got two versions of this, and the one I'm going to be using for this is going to be the Bootstrapper version. The reason being is that this one's going to do everything for us. It's going to automatically update everything. By downloading Legacy Release, it's going to be a case of you manually doing stuff. So always go for the Bootstrapper. It's just an easier way of doing this. Okay, so once you've downloaded the emulator for this, the Bootstrapper, what we're going to do is just drag it onto the desktop, includes the web browser down, we no longer need that. Now, if we go to the Retrobat shortcut, which is the easiest way of accessing the file location for everything to do with Retrobat, if we just go to the emulators folder and just go down until we find TechnoPara, what I'm going to do is just drag this Bootstrapper inside of the TechnoPara folder in Retrobat, right click on it, and I'm going to extract this zip I've just downloaded. And as you can see, I'm using WinRAR. If you're using 7-zip or even WinZip, then it's going to be the same process. So extract here, and there we go. So we can now delete this .zip. We no longer need that one. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the ball rolling and get Bootstrap fully updated. So as you can see, it's automatically looking for things to install, including updates. So once you've opened up this, what we're going to do first is just go to the Browse tab at the top, and we're going to find where to pop this. So you're going to need to find the Retrobat emulators directory and just point it to TechnoPara. So just highlight TechnoPara and left click on it once so it's highlighted. Select folder. And as you can see just here, we've got a lot of things which isn't installed. So what I'm going to do is just go and click full install, and that's going to install everything into that emulators folder, TechnoPara. As you can see, this is now filling up with files. So, okay, TechnoPara is downloaded successfully. Just press OK on this. And you're going to get a little prompt come up saying it seems like you're running for the first time. Please set emulation settings. So, OK. And the next pop-up you're likely going to see is you have no game set up. Do you want to add one now? I've got a game on my desktop as I used in my last tutorial for TechnoPara. So yes, we will add one. Right, so what I'm going to do now is if I back out of the emulators folder in Retrobat, and again, and what I'm going to do is go to ROMs, and under ROMs, we're going to find TechnoParrot. So just open this one up. Now, I've got a game here which is a list. I'm going to just drag this one into the ROMs TechnoParrot folder. Now, this bit is very crucial. If we go into the back GUI, and I'm going to right click on the shortcut in case you don't know how to get to it, open file location, and you'll find back GUI just here. And what I'm going to do is go to system list and system. And if I just scroll down until I find TechnoParrot, now, if you can't find any of this or you don't see it, then just uninstall Retrobat and make sure you download and install the DirectX all-in-one. That seems to be a common problem for some people. Anyways, if we take a look at the extensions, the games are only going to work with the extensions. So technoparrot.parrot.game, etc. Now, just take note of this. I'm going to be using the .technoparrot extension. So if we close out with GUI, and close this one down. What I'm going to do next is rename this game I've just dragged into my TechnoParrot ROMs folder. So show more options, rename, and all I'm going to do is leave the game intact, and then I'm going to put .technoparrot and just press enter. So that one's now set up. That's in our ROMs folder, and it's also got this extension on the end. Okay, so let's go back to TechnoParrot. Now we put that game in place. And what I'm going to do first is just go to those three horizontal tabs at the top and install updates. So first of all, we got many updates here to install. So just update these. And all these updates and all the other information is going to end up in your emulators TechnoParrot folder, which we requested. So as we can see, those updates are now finalized and they're installed. If we go back to the three horizontal tabs, I'm just going to go to Add Game, and I'm going to find my game here, a list. I'm going to Add Game, and again, it's checking for updates. No updates found. So next thing we're going to want to do is just close this one down for now, and I'm going to go back to Emulators, and I'm going to find my TechnoParrot again. So TechnoParrot. Once I'm inside the TechnoParrot folder, I'm going to just go to Game Profiles. Now, once we're inside of this Games Profile folder, you're going to need to search for the game you've added for Retrobat. So in my case, I'm using the game Alest. What I'm going to do is just right click on it, go to Open With, Notepad. And what we need to do here is just search and look for the game, which is here, Alest. Now, what I'm going to do is just go back into my ROMs folder, go back down to TechnoParrot, and we need to match this game up to make sure it's the same name as we have in TechnoParrot. So Alest, and we've also got Alest here. So those two match up now. Say, for example, your game name says something completely different. It's got numbers on the end or anything else. It's not going to work. So you need to title this exactly how it says. So I'm going to leave that there for now. So what I'm going to do in this case is Alest is actually in capitals just here. And of course, this one's in capital and then lowercase. So I'm going to go back to this XML file and I'm going to just title this one again, but using exactly how its name's just here. And once you've done that, we're going to go to File, Save, and just close this down. And next up, I'm going to go back into Retrobat again. Now we can see Retrobat has now appeared because we put the emulator in place. And there's our game. So I'm going to go to View Options, Avast System Options. Now we got a range of different things to mess around with just here. Auto configure controllers, I recommend to keep that on to auto. Video mode. So video mode, you can just change this to however you desire. I'm using a 1080p 60Hz screen, so by pressing auto, that's going to automatically select my 1080p screen. And if we go down to video and disable full screen, this should automatically detect it being no, because remember with Retrobat, auto normally goes with the next option, so it's going to open in full screen. So anyways, let's open up this game and see how this works. And there we go, we're now inside Technopara and it appears to be working just fine.
ペンギンアレスターキーアサインプレイするゲームストーリーゲームのカジュアルモードドラマオンにします操作アシストリーダーを私に任せてくださいミッション開始します大出力これでどうだパワーアップシステム起動よ
So let's just back out that using a hotkey, and that's all there is to Technopara. Okay, so if you're new to my channel, hit notifications and subscribe. You don't want to miss my upcoming content on Retrobat and various other front-end systems that I release content for, such as Launchbox, RetroArch, Batacera, and beyond, as well as lots of standalone emulators. So we're talking Xbox 360 games today and also XBLA games. XBLA games are obviously Xbox Live Arcade games. So what we need to do first then to get this going is if we just go into the Retrobat directory, so I always right click on this to go to open file location. That's your easiest option to get into the directory of Retrobat. And of course, if you want to add games and BIOS files and so on, it's very important that we get into this directory. So most crucially for Xbox 360 and Retrobat is BatGUI. So let's just open up BatGUI. Now, there's a couple of things I'm going to show you in this. So if we firstly go to System List and open up System, if you don't see this, check out my comprehensive setup guide for Retrobat. It's quite likely you're missing a couple of files. You might need to install Retrobat all over again. So let's get on with this. We're going to open up System, and if we go right to the bottom here, you're going to find Xbox 360. If we just click on this one, now your file extensions for this are .iso, which is a very common file extension for disk games. We've got .xex, .xcp, and .m3u. And like I said in the introduction, it's really the .m3u file extensions that we need to generate to get our games to show up through Retrobat. And I think that's where a lot of people's going wrong. So right now, we've got no cores for this, and don't think we've got any emulator set up either. So what I'm going to do is firstly close this down, and I'm going to close this down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just scroll down to ROMs, and inside of ROMs, right at the bottom, we have got Xbox 360. And of course, this is going to be empty. So I've got a couple of Xbox games, and I've got a main Xbox 360 game, which is a great racer. It was one of the early 360 releases, and I was very much hooked on this one at the time. And Project Gotham Racing 3 is so cheap to buy these days, literally a couple of pounds. So just extract your games, and you've got your file extensions through BatGUI. So just convert to .iso, which is a good way of doing this to get your games running through Retrobat. So we're going to just drag our games into that ROM's Xbox 360 folder. And I'm also going to drag my Rocket Knight XBLA game inside of here too. So inside of my XBLA game, we've got another folder inside with a series of numbers and letters, and again, and again. And this one just here, this is your main file. This is the actual game itself, and it doesn't look like it's a game, but it's a game. Okay, so let's open up Retrobat now that you put your XBLA games and your main 360 ISO or .xex files into place. Let's open up Retrobat. Okie doke, so we are in Retrobat now, and we can see Xbox 360 appear. So if we go inside of here, we can also find the game that I've just put in. but my XBLA game isn't here. So what I'm going to do first is just mainly go through Xbox 360 ISO images. And after I've gone through this one, I'm then going to show you how to get your XBLA games functioning. So first of all, with this one, I'm going to just go to Scraper. And I'm going to just scrape some artwork for this one, just to bring it to life and give it a bit of character. So again, if you're new to Retrobat and you're not sure what Scraper is, just check out that comprehensive guide and update game list. Yes. Okay, so there appears to be no artwork for Project Golf Racing 3, which is fair enough. Not all games using Screen Scraper do have artwork. It's not the end of the world. So if we back out of here and if we head over to Retrobat icon, this is where we can download emulators rather than using cores, which nowadays is a new feature, I suppose, to Retro, but it wasn't always like this. So what we're going to do is look at the emulators we can download for our 360 games. So we've got Xenia and Xenia Canary. Now, personally, I prefer Xenia Canary. It seems a bit more compatible rather than the standard Xenia. So what I'm going to do is just open up Xenia Canary, and we need to install Xenia Canary, and you'll need to do this with the standard Xenia too. So let's just install this by clicking on yes. And here we go. So this one's now installed. And what we can do is just click out of this, and that'll bring us back to Retrobat. And you may as well just grab Xenia as well. So let's open up this one and also install this one too whilst we're here. Just as a backup, not in all cases, Xenia Canary is going to have games working, whereas Xenia might. So let's close this one down again. Now we're going to go back to Xbox 360, and we've got two of those emulators downloaded. We've just done Xenia and also Xenia Canary. So what I'm going to do is go to View Options, Advanced System Options, Emulator, and here's our emulator. So I'm going to select Xenia Canary, and I'm going to leave everything on default. And let's open up Project Gotham Racing 3. And just remember, if you've got a lower end computer, then there's a good chance 360 games won't work. And if you get Windows Defender come up, just allow access and that'll go away. So as we can see, that game's running perfect. And I also need to make you aware again that not all Xbox 360 games are going to work. So you might need to do your own research on what games are going to work and what's not. So let's clean up the Xbox 360 games, for example, Project Gotham Racing 3. So I'm going to do this by going to my View Options menu, Advanced System Options. And first of all, internal resolution is the one to use to really make your games look good. Now, I'm going to bump this one up to 1920 by 1080p on this one. Now, just be aware that the higher up you go on your internal resolution, the more lag you might potentially face. Now, vertical sync is another one really you need to be turning on. That's going to reduce screen tear. And if you go down to advanced settings and use visual rendering, anti-aliasing is a very good one to use. So we got two options here, FXAA or also Extreme. Now, again, just like internal resolution, if you put something like FXAA Extreme on, then it expects some lag. So I've already bumped this up to 1080p, so I think I might be pushing my luck. So I'm going to leave this one to auto. And if you've got a game which doesn't boot, it's always worth going down to drivers under advanced settings. If you go to video, by default, this one's going to be running through DirectX 12. But like I said, if a game doesn't boot and you know it should be booting, then just go down to Vulkan and select that. Generally, most of these will work fine just with leaving auto on. So let's boot up Project Gotham Racing 3 with these video settings applied. It might be a bit laggy, it might not. And it's a case of experimenting. And I mean, that's running fine. So if you do bump your video settings up and you find games are still running fine, then by all means go back into view options, advanced system options, and turn something like anti-aliasing to extreme. And then it's just a case of trial and error. So let's check this out again. And as you can see, that's running perfect. But again, don't expect that sort of fluid gameplay for all your games. Okay, first things first then, if you like today's video, just hit notifications for me and subscribe so you get the Retrobat content as I upload it. And be sure to check out my Retrobat playlist. I have many setup guides for specific systems in there at this point. So first thing I'm going to do is just go into Retrobat. I'm going to right click on the shortcut, go to open file location. And from open file location, what I'm going to do is just go to bat GUI. System list. Now, if you don't see what I'm about to pull down just here, all these names are systems. If you don't see this, then you're likely missing a few installations. So check out my setup guide on how to get Retrobat fully up and running. I'll leave a link in my description for that. But anyways, what we're going to do is just scroll down until we get to Xbox. And under Xbox, we can see extensions just here for our games are going to be XBE and .iso. So the game I'm using is a .iso image. I've used a program called Quix to extract and convert my disk into an ISO image in order to play it and upscale it through emulation. So we know what that's running. What we need to do next then is actually go into Retrobat and we're going to download the emulator through this. So once we're inside Retrobat and that's opened, just navigate until you get to Retrobat folder. If you go inside here, we need to download Zemu just here. And I'm going to just open this up and we should get an install now. So press yes on this and let that install. And the first thing this is going to ask you to do is actually set up the emulator. So I've got some files on my desktop. So to do this, I'm going to just go to Machine. And if I scroll down to System, from System, there's a few files there I need to put in place. I've already done this, but I'm going to show you how this is done. So it's asking us for an MCPX boot ROM. So what I'm going to do is just going to go to the piece of paper here on the right. If I open this and locate where my file is to install, it's under my files folder, and here is my mcpx underscore 1.0.bin. So double left click on that, and you'll see at the top, application restart required to apply settings. We're going to ignore that for now, and the next one we need to put into place is the flash BIOS. And as we can see, I've already got this one in place, which is complex underscore 4627.bin. And this flash ROM BIOS, this is the best out there for the compatibility that is. So again, just left click on this one and just put this one into place. So as we can see, I've got complex underscore 4627.bin, double left click. Now, if you was to install this as a standalone emulator, it would ask you for a hard disk image, but not with Retrobat. So I'm going to just leave this one as it is. And if you see a blank space just there, and also under EEPROM, just leave those. These are the two just here that you need to put the files into place. So once that's done, what we're going to do is do as it says, application restart required to apply settings. So I'm going to just close out of here, exit, and that's all ready to go. So let's just exit out of Retrobat, so quit. So we actually need to put the game into Retrobat now, which is course Vex. If I just right click on my Retrobat shortcut again, open file location, and under the ROMs folder, we're going to find Xbox, and that's obviously located right at the bottom. These are all in alphabetical order, so Xbox, and just drag your ISO image inside of here. And that's about it, but I'm going to show you video settings. So let's just open up Retrobat again, and I'm going to get this looking as good as possible for you. Okay, so we're back to Retrobat, and as we can see, we now have Xbox appear. So we're going to go in there, and I'm going to just scrape some artwork for my game Vex. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now. And so once this is finished scraping, I'm going to just go to game settings and update game list. Sometimes it can take a few seconds. Here we go, update game list, yes. And here we go. So we have got a preview video as well as artwork. So what I'm going to do is press select on my PlayStation controller and go to advanced system options, which you can find under the view options window. And emulator is going to be set to XEMU, as auto always goes to the next emulator or core next to auto. Game aspect ratio, I'm going to pop this one onto stretch for now and see how this works out. Internal resolution, just like most other cores and emulators, the further up you go with these, the more lag you're likely going to experience. Personally, I find around 3 to 4 times on Xbox games probably a good internal resolution setting to have. If you go over 4 to 5 times, you're likely going to suffer lag, and that goes to people out there who's got higher end gaming PCs. I don't think it really matters what your specs are. So I'm going to just go to say 3 times on this one. Now, vertical sync, we always want to put this one on for 3D games. This reduces screen tear. So always make sure that's on, or of course leave it to auto because it's going to choose on anyway. And if we just scroll down a little bit further down to emulation, we're going to find memory. And I'll put this one to 128 megabyte. And that's it. We've also got an option here to bypass the boot menu for Xbox, as it says. So if you want the more nostalgic experience of seeing that green X symbol flash before the game comes on, then by all means, just put yes. I'm going to put no for this so we can see the full thing. And let's back out of here, and again, and let's open. And as we can see here, outstanding visuals for such an old game, even though I just fell off. And as we can see here, now I've bumped up the internal resolution and made a couple of other adjustments, the game looks fresh and brand new. So let's exit out of there. So we got our game up and running. We got some really nice visuals on this now. And like I said, with internal resolution, with Zemu, internal resolution is really going to boost up your visuals. Just be very careful. Like I say, past 4 times, I do find games to get very choppy. I'm also going to take you over to the Zemu website. Which is going to tell you which games are actually working with Zemu, because not all games are going to work with this. They're not fully compatible yet. And link's going to be in my description. So this is the Zemu compatibility list, and I'm going to leave the link like I just said. But under here, we can see what's playable. 79% of the Xbox catalog of games are actually here. And it says playable. They're not perfect, but they're playable. And sure enough, they're probably 95% playable in most cases, but they're going to have a few minor glitches. And of course, we got 3% perfect, so 100% perfection. So this website is definitely worth taking a look at. Okay then, so if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe and also be sure to hit notifications so you don't miss up and coming Retrobat, Launchbox, Batacera and other front-end systems and standalone emulation videos that I cover. So we're talking about Vita 3K. Now, I think it's important first to show you the actual compatibility website for Vita 3K. So for those not in the know, not everything is going to be supported for PS Vita. So if we go to the website, and the link's going to be in my description for this one, go to compatibility. And if we just scroll down to this compatibility list, this is a full list to date of what's actually playable on Vita 3K. So obviously we got green here, and this is fully playable stuff pretty much 100%. So if we just click on this one and scroll down, this is going to define every Vita 3K game, which is 100% playable, I'd say. And there is a lot there, as we can see. If we just scroll back to the top here, to date, we got 55.14% of PS Vita games which are very playable. So your next section is in-game, which is 15.25%. So some of these are going to be fine, but they will crash occasionally. So be sure to check that out. So next thing we're going to do then is just go into Retrobat, and we're going to download this emulator. So there's no cores for this. This is a standalone emulator. Okay, so once we're in Retrobat, what we're going to do is just scroll over until we get to Retrobat itself, and we can go ahead and download this emulator direct from here. And here we go, this is Vita 3K. So if we just click on this one, and what we're going to do is just hit on install. So yes, let that download and install. So you're going to get a little command screen or window come up, which is fine. Just let it do its thing. And here we go. So this is the main setup process for the emulator itself. So what I'm going to do in my case is just use my cursor, and I'm going to go to English United Kingdom. And if you don't see this, just simply press on your Windows key on your keyboard, and that should bring up what I can see right here. If we just hit next after selecting your language. Now, this next step is extremely important. If you don't do this, this isn't going to work. So what we're going to do is go to change emulator path. And from here, we need to put this into the Retrobat directory, emulators, and then into the Vita directory. So what I'm going to do is just look for where my installation of Retrobat is. So in my case, it's in C drive, Retrobat, emulators, And we're just going to scroll down until we find Vita 3K. So just highlight that, left click on it and select folder. And now the current emulator path now changes. Now what we're going to do next is literally press next. Now we need to install both of these, what it says here. So we need to download firmware and download font package. So just left click on download firmware. And that's going to bring you to the PlayStation website, and you can download your firmware for this right just here. So what I'm going to do is go to download update. And if you're using Windows Edge and it says it can be downloaded successfully, like I've got here, just click on the horizontal lines and press on keep. And keep anyway. Next, what we're going to do is just go back to the Vita 3K and download font package. And that's just downloaded automatically for us, as we can see. So let's go back to the Vita 3K. And this time I'm going to go to install firmware file. And we need to navigate to where those two files have just downloaded. So for me, it's going to be in my downloads. And the one we're going to select is the PSV updat.pub. Double left click and just let this one install. This one can take a considerable amount of time, so just be patient with this and let it do its thing. And just press OK on this. And what we're going to do next, once that's been installed, is just go back into install firmware file. And this time, I'm going to go to PSP to updat.pub and just let this one again install. And just hit OK. And as you can see, once it has been installed, we now have V on both of these. So if you can see V on download firmware and download font package installed, you're good to go. So just press next and hit next again. And you have now completed initial setup. So let's press OK. Cool. Okay, and now we're going to press next and next again. Do you want to update Vita 3K? Got no option here, so let's just update. And that's it. So we're next going to press OK on this little info window. And let's just take a look at what this is looking like. So what we're going to do next is start adding some games into Vita 3K. So we can close this down and let's just exit out of Retrobat. So main menu and quit. And you can also close all this down now. Okay, so next thing we're going to do once we've got that emulator installed and everything's ready to go there, we're going to go to Retrobat, right click on it, open file location, and we're going to go to Back GUI system list. And if you don't see this list of systems here, then just follow my comprehensive setup guide and that will get you sorted. But in this case, I'm going to just go down until I come up with PS Vita. Under extensions here, we can see we need a .m3u extension for our games, a .psv or a .vpk. We can also see we got no RetroArch cores for Vita. It's literally just a Vita 3K emulator that we've just installed. So we can close out of here now and close out of Back GUI. And what we're going to do, we're going to go to Emulators, and from Emulators, we're going to find Vita 3K. And what we're going to do, first of all, I'm going to tell you that your games you install through this method is going to be listed under XU0. And in the XU0, your games are going to end up in the app folder. But we're going to come out of here and we're going to open up the emulator itself, Vita 3K. Once this screen comes up, just use your cursor, just left click. Okay, so we're going to go to File, and we're going to go to install.zip.vpk, and I'm going to select file. And my game, Street Fighter X Tekken, is in a .zip file extension. So left click on that, open, and just let this install. Okay, now we can press OK on here, and here's our game. So if we look at the compatibility just there, this one represents in-game. So what I'm going to do first is just make sure this game is at least a little bit playable. So double left click and press on start. And Vita 3K works with a shader system. So shaders, some of your games will lag at first, but once those shaders have loaded up, your games will become more fluid.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken!
Abel is tracking the movements of the criminal organization.
Let the madness begin!
So we can close out of there, and as we can see, everything's working fine as to be expected. So let's go into Retrobat. Okay, so we got no Vita appear at all. So what we're going to do is fix this. So main menu, quit. And what we're going to do finally to get this recognized by Retrobat is just head back over to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location, bat GUI, M3U creator. And for this, I'm going to go to PS3 emulator path. I'm going to click on the three horizontal lines, go into my Retrobat directory, which is on my C drive. Here it is, Retrobat emulators I'm going to go into because our game is in our emulators folder. This is where we installed it. And from here, we're going to just go to Vita 3K. And my game installed in this path, which is UX0. And it's in the app folder. And I'll just highlight on this one, select folder, and then press on scan. We're going to give this a name, and of course the name of my game is Street Fighter X Tekken. And from here, what I'm going to do is just generate M3U. And if we go into the ROMs directory of Retrobat, and from ROMs, this would have generated in my PS3 folder. So we can see it just here, but we don't want it in PS3 folder. Otherwise, your Vita games are going to show up for the PS3 system. So right click on this, copy, and we're going to copy that M3U into the PS Vita folder. And just right click, and it's now pasted in PS Vita. Head back out to PS3 and just highlight and delete this M3U from PS3, we can now go into Retrobat. And here's PS Vita, complete with our game, Street Fighter X. Now, if I go to main menu, scraper, and just scrape some artwork in the video for this just to finish it off. And I appreciate this one's been a long process today, but persevere. And if anything doesn't work, just try it again. And normally your game will end up working. And here we go. So if we just go to view options, advanced system options, we're going to just leave everything as default for now. Just press start. And if you should see missing BIOS, just ignore it and press yes.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
And another thing, practice make.
Ready, go!
Got him! Hadouken! Shoryuken! Shin no kakutoka he no michi
Success!
wa mada toi.
As we can see, that's working fine, but we can clear up the picture on this to make it look better like I always do. So advanced system options, internal resolution. Now you can bump the internal resolution up, but just be very aware that if you've got a weak lower end computer, if you bump this up, it's going to lag in some cases and it won't play right. So for me, I'm going to just bump this one up to 3 times. Vertical sync, I'm going to put to yes to eliminate screen tearing. And we've also got option of visual rendering here, so we can enhance the textures in the game. And just like internal resolution, if you bump this up to say 8 times to 16 times, if you've got a weak computer, it's going to crash or it's going to lag. So just start off with the minimum, and then if it's working okay, just keep bumping it up until you get to the sweet point. So for me, I'm going to just go for 2 times. Anti-aliasing, I'm going to put to yes. Now, if we go under drivers and video, if you find a game which should be working doesn't boot, then there's a good chance that you've selected the wrong driver. And most of the time, these work just fine on auto. So with these settings in place, let's see what Street Fighter X Tekken looks like this time round.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
It all started with a meteorite falling to the South Pole.
It's all or nothing.
So as we can see, that certainly looks much more tidy. There's not so many jagged edges around the animations, and it generally looks better. So if that's the case for you and your games are running just fine, be sure to bump up that anti-aliasing and also internal resolution. Okay then, so first things first, if you're new to my channel and you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe, and also like. It gets you the latest Retrobat content as I upload it, as well as other retro-related emulation videos such as Launchbox, RetroArch, Batacera, and beyond, even Raspberry Pi nowadays. So we're going to start off today with Yuzu. Now, Yuzu is obviously a Nintendo Switch emulator, which has gained a lot of popularity. And the reason a lot of people want to emulate Nintendo Switch is partly due to better resolutions. The original Nintendo Switch only goes up to around 1080p, 720p to 1080p. Now, if you've got a powerful computer and you've got a good CPU and a good GPU, we can push this up to 4K in some cases. And obviously, people like myself love the idea of having high resolution on games which aren't technically supported. So we're going to start off with Yuzu on this. And what we're going to do first is go straight into Retrobat. Once we're inside Retrobat, you're going to find Retrobat itself. This is a little logo. So if we just go inside of here, your theme might look a lot different to this one. It likely does. But what we're going to do is just scroll down and we're going to go for Yuzu first. And Yuzu is going to be around the bottom. Now you've got two options for Yuzu. You can pay for early access, which entitles you to all the latest updates by Yuzu. And the team behind Yuzu are very active, always pushing out updates to make the emulator so much better. But I don't have that. I'm going to just use the standard Yuzu switch. So I'm going to just open this one. And it says an emulator is missing. So what we need to do then is actually download this one manually without Retrobat. So we're going to main menu, quit. And the link's going to be in my description for this one, but this is the Yuzu official website. And what we're going to do is download the emulator itself. And it's also suggesting that you download the latest version of Visual C++. So let's just go through that a second. We're just going to click on here. And once that's downloaded, you're going to get a little .exe. If we open this and just install it, you'll likely see install is a tab on yours. I've already got this. I'm limited with options here. Like I said, this is installed on my computer. But if you don't have it, just press install. I'm going to just press repair. And once you have installed it, it will likely say restart your computer. So if that's the case, restart your computer. Okay, so we're back to Yuzu. And before I actually go through with downloading this, we got a compatibility tab here. And we got a little legend at the top where it's saying that the blue is perfect. So games below in blue perfect are going to be running 100%. And there's a lot there. And the next down, we got great. Now, this isn't going to be completely 100%. There's going to be glitches and so on, but largely your games are going to be likely quite playable. Okay, bad intro, won't boot, not tested, kind of just forget. But like I said, the Yuzu team are very active. So let's just download this. So go to the download tab in downloads for Windows times 64. And we got the Yuzu installed just here. And what we need to do is actually install this into the Retrobat emulators directory. Okay then, so once we've downloaded the Yuzu installer, you're going to have an exe. Just double left click on this exe and just make sure Yuzu is checked. Or if you prefer to go for the paid Yuzu early access, just check on this one. But you're going to need a token and that requires you go into their Patreon. So I'm going to just leave this one to Yuzu, and I'm also going to create a shortcut for this, and I'm going to go to install. Now, right now, this is actually installing to our C drive. So once we've done this, we can get rid of this install.exe. We no longer need this one. So, okay, so once the install process is done, we're going to need to copy some of the contents of what Yuzu is just installed on your computer into Retrobat. So I'm going to open up Yuzu. and okay this for now. And if I go to File, open Yuzu folder, and this is where everything is installed to. So what I'm going to do is just go up to the search bar just here, and if I delete Yuzu and Roman, and just go down to local, and if I go down to the bottom, we're going to find Yuzu, and we're going to go into Yuzu Windows MSVC, and I'm going to press Control on my keyboard and A, and this is going to highlight everything. Right click and left click on copy. Okay, so once you've copied all of those files, we're just going to go back to the Retrobat Emulators Yuzu folder and just paste these inside. Whilst we're in the Retrobat directory, we're going to go to the Retrobat ROMs directory. And if I just scroll down and find Switch, here we go. So I'm going to tell you now about file extensions. So the best way to find out which game file extensions Retrobat Yuzu accepts is just go into the Retrobat open file location, back to UI, and system list. And I'm going to scroll down system and just look for Switch. Now, if you don't see what I see just here, there's a good chance that you haven't installed Retrobat correctly, and I recommend you checking out my fully up-to-date comprehensive guide for the latest Retrobat to get you started with that. So we're going to find Switch, and it accepts .nso, .nro, .nca, .xci, .nsp, .kip. So let's close out of here. And what I'm going to do now is just go back to my Retrobat ROM Switch directory. And I'm going to drag my game in. So I've got Super Mario 3D World, courtesy of my partner or fiance, and I'm going to just drag and drop this one in. So what we did just a minute ago when we copied all of those files from app data is that it didn't generate what's called a user folder, and we need this in order to put some extra files in. So to get this folder appear, we're going to open up Retrobat again. And to get that folder to appear, what we're going to do is just quickly boot up our Super Mario 3D World game. And it's going to say that keys aren't there, which is fine. We need this. So we're going to OK this and no, just close that of Yuzu and OK. Close again. And let's shut down Retrobat. So main menu, quit. Now, if we go back into the emulators folder in the Retrobat directory and just scroll down till we get to Yuzu, you will find we have now got user in there, and that's what we need. Inside user, we got several different folders. The one to look for is keys. Now, I've got a couple of files here, what we need to make our Switch games run. We got prods.keys and title.keys. I'm going to just drag and drop these inside of that Yuzu user keys folder in Retrobat emulators. And I'm going to go to Retrobat once again. And before we boot up the game, I'm going to just quickly grab some artwork. So main menu, scraper, scrape now. I just give that a few seconds. That's going to download us some artwork and a preview video, which always adds to the look. So once this is finished scraping, just head up to game settings, update game list and press on yes. And here we go. So we got cover art for our game. Okay, and as we can see, that's working fine. Now, you might notice in some Switch games for Yuzu that it might lag. And what it's doing, it's building what's known as shaders. And once you play a game a few times, those shaders will be loaded into your cache folder, and you'll no longer then see lag as much. So just be aware again that you will need something strong to power Yuzu and play the games. So next thing I'm going to show you to do finally is how to add updates and DLC for your Switch games. So to do this, we're going to main menu, quit, and we're going to go back to the Retrobat directory again. So open file location, and if we go down to emulators and we look for Yuzu, and we can open up yuzu.exe here, and this is how you can install your updates and DLC. So from here, what we need to do is just go into File and install files to NAND. And then it's just a simple case of locating your DLC file or your update file, just double left clicking on it, and then that will install to NAND. Now let's go back to Retrobat, and I'm going to show you through some video settings. Okay, so let's go inside Nintendo Switch. If I go to View Options by pressing Select on my PS3 controller, Advanced System Options. So if we select one of these other ones, which I've not done yet, Yuzu. Now, internal resolution, like I say, the great thing about playing Switch games through emulation is the ability to really upscale this. Like I said at the start of the video, 4K, that type of thing. But just be very aware, if you don't have the hardware, it's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it's going to be very slow. So just be aware of that. But obviously, the higher up you go, the more stress it's going to put on your hardware. Vertical sync should always be put onto yes. That's going to reduce potential screen tear. Now, game aspect ratio, Switch games are designed for 16:9, so just leave this one on to auto, which is going to detect that one. Under auto configure controllers, I recommend this one always being put to on. And if we go down to visual rendering, we've got a set of options here. So anti-aliasing is obviously going to be used for filtering and creating a bit of a blur on jagged edges. Scale and filter, normally I suggest going for something like bilinear on this, but that's entirely up to you. Or if you've got an AMD GPU, then it's worth going down to AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution, which might make your games look better. I don't have an AMD, I've got NVIDIA. And anthropic filtering, this is going to really enhance the quality of textures you see in your game. So just like internal resolution, the higher up you go with this, the more laggy your game potentially might become. So just be aware of this one. And if we go down to drivers and go to video, some games which should be loading and you find don't load, by auto, this is using OpenGL, which is obviously NVIDIA related. It's worth going to Vulkan in case of some games not working. And if we go right down to controls, under player one controller type, we got a selection of different Switch controllers that we can emulate. Okay then, so first things first, before I start today's setup guide, just make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming retro emulation content such as Retrobat like I'm doing today. So what we're looking at today then is Ryujinx through Retrobat. So like I said at the start of the video, I've actually covered this with Yuzu in the past, and some people debated whether or not it should be a part of Retrobat, but it is a part of Retrobat, and yes, it's not retro, but it is included in Retrobat, and my aim is to cover every system in Retrobat. So of course Ryujinx is a part of Retrobat. So what we're going to do then first is open up Retrobat itself. Okay, so once we're inside of Retrobat, we're going to go to the Retrobat logo on the wheel just there, and we're going to scroll to find Ryujinx, and here it is. So if we go to install this, it's going to say emulator is missing, and that's fine. So what we're going to do is just back out of Retrobat, and so we need to download Ryujinx manually. So what we're going to do is just use our favorite web browser, and the link is going to be in my description so you can download this yourself. And what we're going to do is just download the Windows version. Just remember, Retrobat is a Windows distribution. So let's download Ryujinx, which is the latest 1.1.1052. And here we go. So it's downloaded. Okay, so once we downloaded Ryujinx, it's going to be in a zipped folder. So what we're going to do is just right click on this and extract it to the desktop. I'm using WinRAR, you might be using WinZip or 7-zip, but they all work the same. So extract here, and we're going to get a folder come out of this, which is titled Publish This, you can see just here. So what we're going to do next is just wait for this to extract, and we can now delete this zipped folder. So what we're going to do with this is open up Retrobat directory. So right click on your shortcut, open file location, and once we're in file location, we're going to go down to Emulators. And inside of Emulators, we're going to find Ryujinx. And here it is. And as you can see, there's nothing here at the moment, just portable. So I'm going to just go to this publish folder and just open this up and highlight all the contents inside of here. Once everything's highlighted, you can press Ctrl and A together, or just use a cursor to highlight everything. Right click on it and then just copy everything from that folder. This is then going to go inside your Emulators Ryujinx folder. So just right click and we can then paste. Okie doke, so everything is inside. Now what we're going to do next is actually open up Ryujinx.exe, which is going to open up the emulator. The first thing you're going to see is keys not found. So we're going to OK that. And this is the main user or graphical user interface for Ryujinx, so very similar to Yuzu. And what we need to do now is put our prod.keys file into Ryujinx. And to do this, we're going to go to File, open Ryujinx folder. And if we go into System, we can then put our prod.keys file inside of here. So I got my prod.keys, and I'm going to copy these and just paste it into this system folder. And so just to check this is now installed, what we're going to do is just close down Ryujinx and we're going to reopen it. So Retrobat and open file location, let's go back down to the emulators folder and back down to Ryujinx. And if we open up Ryujinx this time, our little window saying prod.keys is now gone because that's been installed. Next thing we need to do is add some firmware to Ryujinx. So you can grab your firmware, and what we're going to do with this is go to Ryujinx again. Let's go to Tools at the top, Install Firmware, and I'm going to go to install a firmware from XCI or Zip. If I just left click on that, I can then go to Desktop and go inside of the folder where my firmware is located. And the most recent firmware for Switch is 16.1.0, and as you can see, I'm using a .zip file of this. And you should then get a little pop-up saying install firmware 16.1.0, and yes, we want to install this. And here we go, that's that done. So that's the emulator configured. Now we're going to start adding some games. So I've got Kirby and the Forgotten Lands to add to this to test today through Ryujinx, and let me tell you, it's a superb game and it runs really well. So what I'm going to do is first go up to Retrobat shortcut, open file location and Batch UI. And if we go to System List and drop down System, if you don't have this, check out my comprehensive setup guides for Retrobat. But anyways, if you hopefully do see this, we're going to scroll down until we reach Switch. And under Switch, we got all the file extensions that it's going to accept. So if you've got any other game which ends without one of these, then it's not going to work. So in my case, I'm using a .nsp of my Kirby game, and that's going to work fine. So if we back out of here and back out of Batch UI, we're this time going to go to the ROMs folder and just look for Switch. I'm then going to paste my Kirby game inside the ROM switch folder. And before I go any further, let me just remind you that you're going to need a fairly decent PC to support Switch games. It can be pretty demanding on your processor and GPU. So everything's up and ready now, ready to go. So we're going to go back to Retrobat. And this time we've got Nintendo Switch. Cool. And we've got our game here, and I'm going to just scrape some art for this one. So if I go to main menu by pressing start on my controller, scraper, and scrape now. And scraping has been finished. We're going to go to game settings, update game list, and just press yes. And here we go, excellent stuff. So if we go to view options, advanced system options, emulator, we're then going to select Ryujinx. And from Ryujinx emulator, we have a selection here of different video settings. So we got driver, and normally Switch games, I believe, run fine through OpenGL and Vulkan. So I'm going to leave this to auto and everything else on default settings for this. And I'm going to open up Kirby in the Forgotten Land. Stop it there for now, and you'll notice there was a lot of staggering, a lot of lagging in that game, and the reason that is that Ryujinx emulator, much like our PCS3, PS3, or even Yuzu emulator for Switch, is working on something called shaders, and what it's doing is collecting all the different pieces of data, the graphics, everything you see on screen, and it's collecting them. So if I boot this back up again, you'll notice that the lagging will have stopped. So let's boot this up one last time. First part of the gameplay, that lagging was gone, but the more I went into the game, that lagging started again because it's not yet caught up with those graphics. So what we're going to do next is just check some video settings, and of course the reason you might want to emulate your Switch collection is, in our case, we've actually got a Switch Lite, and so sometimes it's so much better to use this through emulation so we can watch it or play on the full screen rather than being subject to a tiny little light. So what we're going to do then is go to Advanced System Options and Internal Resolution. Now technically we can boost these games up to 4K-ish, so just be aware that if you do go something like 4 times, then you are going to experience a lot of lag, and I believe that even the best gaming laptop or best gaming computer in the world is going to struggle. So even if we bump this up to 2 times, it's going to make a massive difference. And game aspect ratio, I recommend leaving this to auto. And if we go down to visual rendering, we can go to shader cache. And like it says, it reduces stuttering by enabling shader cache. So let's just put this one on yes. So texture recompression, we're going to leave this one to auto. Anastrophic filtering, again, it really depends on your hardware specs. If you've got something mid-range, you might be able to pop this up to around 4 times to 8 times. Personally, I would stick with around 2 times or 4 times, and that should do us fine. Now, if we go into emulation, we can use undocked mode or docked mode, and just follow what it says. So like it says, it can increase performance on some lower end systems. And if we go down to drivers and go into video, there might be a game, for example, which is known to work on Ryujinx, but you find it's not booting at all. So in that case, just go to video and change from OpenGL to Vulkan. Okay, before I start today's Laserdisc Singe Retrobat setup, just hit notification, subscribe and like if you like the video today. It really helps my channel out a great deal. Plus it gets you up-to-date retro emulation content as I release it, which is every day pretty much. I also cover a wide range of different emulators, standalone emulators, as well as front-end setups. So we're looking at the awesome Singe games today, and these are American Laserdisc predominantly. So what we need to do first is take a look at the game files and also establish which emulators are going to be running Singe games through Retrobat. Now, first of all, we're going to head to the Retrobat shortcut, and if we right click on it, open file location, we're going to go to Back GUI as always first, so we're going to just check out what we need to do, our file extensions. If we just pop in some games into the Daphne folder for this, they're not going to be recognized. So we need to edit some folder names. So first of all, let's just go to system list and ignore what I'm doing here, but we're going to drop down system. And what we're going to do just here is just scroll down to Daphne. And if you don't see this, you probably not installed Retrobat correctly. So check out my fully comprehensive setup guides for Retrobat. So let's open up Daphne. And here we go. So our extensions need to be .daphne.actionmax, .7zip, .zip, .rar, .squashfs. Now, normally when we're looking at extensions for Retrobat, we're looking at the actual files itself, but these actually need to be changed with the folders with the games inside. And if we take a look at cores, Libretro, RetroArch, we got no cores here, so we're going to be using 2 emulators for this, or rather we've got 2 emulators available for running Singe games, which are Hypsius and Daphne. So what we're going to do then is take a look at the game folders themselves. But first of all, we're just going to go down to the ROMs folder, and we don't need BIOS for Singe games, but we're going to go down to Daphne folder. Now, if you're interested in Daphne and other Laserdisc games, then I did do a full Daphne setup guide a couple of months ago, so check that one out. And whilst I'm thinking about it, I also did Action Max. So Action Max is a lot like Singe, but the games were on VHS and there's only 5 games for that available. But I uploaded that one last night, so check that out if you're into this type of thing. So we're in the Daphne folder within ROMs. Now I've got my games here. Now I've already extracted 5 of these games. And what I'm going to do is just show you how to extract. So it's saying that it's a zipped folder, so I'm using WinRAR. So what I'm going to do is just right click on it and extract. So extract this game, Titan AE, and just let that do its thing. Okie doke, so we can now delete that zip folder, so just right click on it and delete it, and let's take a look inside of Titan. Here we go, so inside of this game folder we got .singe.txt, and if we take a look inside some other folders that I've already extracted, we'll also find those same files in here. So we'll have a singe file and a .txt file somewhere. So there's your .txt, TimeGal, and we've also got .singe just there. What we need to do then is, I've already done this, but I'm going to show you what to do. If we just rename this folder for Titan, so right click on it, show more options, rename. We're going to put a dot at the end of this, followed by Daphne. Okay, so as you can see, I've already done this to the other games I've got here. Okay, so I'm going to just drag all these games, and remember each folder has got the .daphne, and I'm going to drag those into my Retrobat ROMs Daphne folder, just so you can see. Next thing we need to do is create some text documents for these. If you don't do this, your games aren't going to show or they're not going to play. So just right click on an empty space in your ROMs Daphne folder, go to New, Text Document, and what we need to do here is name the games. So for example, the first game I'm going to do is Cliffhanger, which is at the top. So I'm going to just type out here Cliffhanger and leave the .text at the end. That's absolutely fine. And to make this a little bit quicker, just left click on the game folder, show more options, rename, and what I'm going to do is just right click and copy. So we're going to open up a new text document, so right click at empty space again, text document, and if I press Ctrl and V, that's going to paste that. So I obviously need to take away the Daphne. And so as you can see, that corresponds with the Crime Patrol HD. So it's named exactly the same, just the folders are going to be .daphne, whereas these text documents end with a .text file extension. So we're going to do this again with Madstock. So rename, right click, copy, open up a new text document, and in here, Ctrl and V, and then just take away the Daphne. And again for Space Pirates, right click, show more options, rename, right click, copy, new, text document, Ctrl and V, and again take away Daphne and the dot. Okay, and finally we got Titan. Okay, so now all our games are named correctly and we got those accompanying text document files. What we're going to do is open up Retrobat. Okie doke, so if you've done this correctly, you should see Daphne up here. And here's all the games. So what we're going to do first is just select, which is going to bring up view options, advanced system options, emulator. Now we've got 2 emulators to use here, but we need to download each one as RetroArch don't support these games. So we can either choose the first option or Daphne. If I'm going to just leave this to auto for now, Other things we need to look at is video settings, and what I'm going to do is pop this one back onto auto, and I'm also going to put my video back to auto, and I'm going to show you the difference in a second. So first of all, let's open up one of these games, and I'm going to open up my favourite, which is Time Gal. And like I say, we do need to download the emulator, so on this part we're just going to press yes. And as we can see, the image is cropped, so you've got the time at the top and you can barely see it. So if we back out of this game, what we're going to do is adjust the video settings. So press select on your controller, advanced system options, and what we're going to do is just make some changes here. So game aspect ratio, I'm going to leave to 16:9, and the video part, under video modes, this is the important part. So by default, this is going to be displaying at 1080p 60 Hz. It could be different for your monitor or your screen you're using. For me, I find the option 720p, 1280 by 720 at 60 Hz fine. So if I back out again, and just bear in mind, we've also got smooth games by linear filter, which is already turned on. We got shader set just here to add scan lines or whichever effect you might like. And under decorations, we don't have a decoration for Singe. But if you're going to use a decoration, then just remember to put the aspect ratio back to 4:3. So we've got video set up now for my screen at least, which is 1280 by 720 running at 60 Hz. And game aspect ratio is on 16:9. Now if we open up the game again, Time Gal, so as we can see, that's running perfectly. If we go back to advanced system options again, go back down to video, force full screen, let's try and put this onto yes. And this time I'm going to open up another game, so we're going to go for Crime Patrol.
Good time. 2343.
Shoot to choose a location.
Okay, so I'm going to also check out Cliffhanger, but this time I'm going to change emulator. So select advanced system options, emulator, and we're going to use Daphne for this. Let's check this out. And we're going to install Daphne.
Cliffhanger.
So that also works fine with the Daphne emulator as well, and I have no idea how to play that one. We also got Mad Dog, so let's quickly open up this one. This is probably the most famous one alongside Time Gal.
See, what kind of a shot you are, Pilgrim. Take a crack at this bottle.
And for some games, you might find the fire button, action button isn't responding. So in that case, it's more likely going to be your keyboard. So if you want to put those keyboard buttons onto your actual controller, such as the Xbox controller, it's just a simple case of going back to the settings, and we can go down to edit pad to key profile. And from here, everything looks like it's actually already set up. But if you want to change this and edit it, then it's just a simple case of finding out on your keyboard which button does which. Just press down on one of these options here. So for example, D-pad up. That's going to bring up a virtual keyboard. Now, say for example, in the game, the keyboard responds to moving your cursor upwards on the screen, then we'll find the relevant key on the virtual keyboard and map it out with our controller. And just make sure to save it once you've done this. And let's just finally check out Titan. And every now and again, you will get parsing fault. That's fine, it's a one-time thing only. Okay, first things first, like I always say, if you like what you see today and you've not subscribed, please subscribe and hit notifications, and also like. That will get you up-to-date content as I upload it. And just to remind you, I also cover other front-end systems such as Batacera, Launchbox, Playnite, RetroArch, and even standalone emulators such as PlayStation 3 and microcomputers such as Commodore 64. Pretty much anything retro-based I cover here on my channel. Let's get on with this. What we're going to do first is go into the Retrobat directory, so just right-click on this, open file location. We're going to go to BatGUI. And this is what I always recommend, BatGUI. This is a really good reference point to show you which file extensions we need for systems within Retrobat. So if I just go to System List, and at the top here we've got System. Now just be mindful, if you don't see what I see just here, please follow my comprehensive setup guide, which is just over 13,000 views right now in the space of a couple of months. Really grateful for the amount of views and likes that one's had. It's obviously helped a lot of people out. So follow that guide. If you can see what I can see here by scrolling down, we're going to find Daphne. And under extensions, we got .daphne, .actionmax, .7zip, .zip, .rar, .squashfs. So these are your game file extensions that your games need to be added in. Now the strange thing with Daphne is that we actually need to put games files into two places rather than one, which is very commonplace in Retrobat. Most things go into the ROMs folder. It's a little bit different with Daphne, and you'll see why soon. We also got cores libretro. As you can see, we've got no cores which is going to support this in Retrobat. So we need to go into Retrobat and download the actual emulator. So let's close BatGUI down. So let's open up Retrobat. And also to remind you before I open up Retrobat, you can actually buy a copy of Dragon's Lair over on Steam. And if you really want to get it at a cheaper price than it already is on Steam, which is currently at £8.50 or $9.99 if you're in the States, you'll find other websites on the internet to purchase a digital copy of this from. It's totally worth your money and I highly recommend it. It's a classic. Okay, so once we're in Retrobat, then what we're going to do is just scroll up to Retrobat, and if we scroll down, this is all your emulators that you can download inside of Retrobat, and the one we're looking for here is Daphne Loader. So if we just install this one, just click on it, and you'll get a little prompt up to install it. So I'm using my cursor here to press yes, and here we go. So you're going to get this little pop-up, fatal error, that's okay. and you're also going to get the emulator exited unexpectedly. Again, just press OK on this. So we've now downloaded the emulator, so we can exit out of Retrobat, so main menu and quit. Okay, so what we're going to do next is go back to the Retrobat directory, so just right click on that shortcut again, open file location, and we're going to scroll down to ROMs, and again we're going to scroll down to Daphne, and inside of Daphne we're going to pop in one of these game folders I got, and this one's titled layer.daphne. So if you remember from back GUI under the file extensions, one of them said Daphne, and we also need a .zip. So inside of my layer.daphne folder, we're going to find these contents. So what I'm going to do is just drag and drop the layer.daphne, and remember this isn't zipped inside of the ROM's Daphne folder like this. And what I'm going to do next then is open up Retrobat again. And this time we're going to find Daphne. So if we go into Daphne, we're going to find layer, and what I'm going to do is just open this.
Save me!
And that's fine. So if we just exit again out of here and quit Retrobat, so go to quit, as we can see in the Retrobat ROMs folder now, it's just generated a new folder, and we've also got a .text. That's fine, that's what we need. So inside of this ROMs folder that it's just created, we're just going to click inside this one. Now in my layer.zip, I've got a few different files here. So firstly, what I'm going to do is just copy these files inside. And let's just close out of this one. And I'm also going to drag in this layer.zip. And we're going to back out of this and back out again and back out again. So we're in the root directory now of Retrobat. And if we go down to emulators, we're going to find Daphne. So if we go inside Daphne, we're going to find another ROMs inside of here. And all we got in here is a readme.txt. So what I'm going to do is also copy some files which I've just pasted elsewhere in Retrobat, and these are the Dragon's Lair u1.bin files. So if you remember just a minute ago, I also put these into the ROMs folder. So what we're going to do next is open up Retrobat. And if we go into Daphne again, we can now see two layers. So obviously we don't need duplicates of this. So the way around this is if I press backspace on my keyboard, if I just go down to view customization, and right at the bottom you're going to find file extensions. If we go into this and just uncheck .zip like I've just done, go to back and back again. And now, as we can see, we've only got one file, which is our game. So before I boot this one up, let's grab some artwork. So enter, and I'm going to go to scraper and just scrape this, which shouldn't take too long. And scraping finished, so we're going to go up to game settings, update game list, and yes. And here we go, awesome stuff. So we're ready to boot up our game. So I'm going to just go into this.
Dragon's Lair, a fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of a dark wizard who has enchanted it with treacherous monsters and obstacles. In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey continues against the awesome forces that oppose your efforts to reach the Dragon's Lair. Lead on, adventurer. Your quest awaits.
So as we can see, that boots up fine. And also, if we go into view options, advanced system options, Make sure emulator is selected is Daphne. And if we go to shader set, you've obviously got your regular shaders just here to make things a bit more retro looking, such as curvature, which turns it into an old school CRT mode. I'm going to just leave this to auto. We also got the option of decorations here, but as you've just seen, it doesn't really need decorations, so I suggest leaving this to none, which I leave on auto. We also got aspect ratio, so if you did want to put decorations on this, make sure you put your game into 4:3 aspect ratio. If you put decorations on and say it's 16:9, your image is going to be just cropped, so let's just leave this one to auto. Now, in terms of controlling these games, I personally use the keyboard for this. I can't seem to get my controller working. So let's go back into the game again and let me go through the controls of this for you. As we see just a minute ago, if we go to advanced system options, normally you would find controls just here, but as you can see, Laserdisc, Daphne doesn't have this. So let's open up the game again.
Dragons.
So the digit 6 on my keyboard is inserting coins, and I press digit 1 to start the game as player 1.
Uh-oh.